Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa. I'm Clarisse Fortuné and here's the top headlines from across the continent. Malawians are waiting to find out who their next president will be as vote counting has started. Vying for a second term, current President Lazarus Chakwera has pledged to fix Malawi's economy, as has his main rival, former leader Peter Mutharika. In Cameroon, voters will have to wait after October's election. We'll have a look at what the country's new generation hopes for in the next presidential, as incumbent Paul Biya wants to stay in power after 42 years in a job. Elections in October as well in Ivory Coast, where a new exhibition uses football and history to call for peace as the presidential draws closer, an election in a shadow of tensions. Malawi is waiting to find out who its next president will be. Counting is now underway after thousands of people turned out to vote, hoping for change in a country facing tough economic times. President Lazarus Chakwera is seeking a second term, facing off against his main rival, former leader Peter Mutharika. Both candidates promised to revive the struggling economy. Let's hear from some of the voters.
The candidate I have voted for should make sure that youths are more employed than they have been. I want to see more youth in all sectors of development.
Past 5 years have been fair to me, but a lot needs to be done going forward.
I always say that a person is supposed to participate in community activities such as this, because if one doesn't, then one is useless, since this is how our country can develop.
It has been a very peaceful election process. You might have seen people have gathered in large numbers, they are voting in large numbers. This is the constituency where people registered highest in the country.
And we're going to talk about elections again, this time in Cameroon, where the presidential is due to take place on October 12. More than 8 million voters will go to the polls to elect their president for the next 7 years. Incumbent Paul Biya, who has been in power since 1982, is seeking an 8th term at the age of 92. But is the aging president a convincing choice for the young country? Emily Boyle takes a look at what Cameroon's youth hope for the next election.
Although the national average age is just 18 years old, Cameroon's President Paul Biya is seeking re-election at 92 years of age. A few weeks out from the vote, the country's youth is torn between optimism and frustration.
The situation of the country is getting tough by the day, and we are hoping that whoever wins the election should see into the situations, the problems the citizens are facing. So that's just all the reason why we ought to vote.
As a citizen, it is my birthright. It is a time where I need to decide for the fate of this country for the next 7 years. And I am going in with a lot of optimism.
President Paul Biya first took office in 1982. After 42 years in the top job, he's hoping to win his 8th term and stay in power for another 7 years.
My generation, young people born in the 90s and the early 2000s are no more patient. We are at the elastic limit of patience to live under the leadership of one person. So I think that we are going to cast the vote of hope come 12 October 2025.
12 other candidates are also running, including Paul Biya's former minister of 16 years, Issa Chiroma Bakari. He's been named the opposition's consensual candidate. Despite his newfound title, many opposition parties remain sceptical of Chiroma and have expressed doubts about the legitimacy of his Union for Change party. Maurice Kamto, a leading opposition figure, was unable to run. His candidacy was rejected by the Electoral Council, Elections Cameroon. Around 8 million people are expected to place their vote in the presidential elections on the 12th of October.
Now, billions of dollars in public funds in South Sudan have been stolen over the past decade in massive government corruption. That's according to a report by the UN, which detailed several schemes allegedly used by political officials to divert huge chunks of public revenues. Analysts say that 76 of the country's 79 counties are in the throes of severe food insecurity. Yet, only a tiny fraction of government funds are allocated to public services. The report says Yasmin Souka is the chairperson of the UN Commission on Human Rights in South Sudan. She says the country is not a poor country, but a plundered nation.
This report tells a stark truth. Corruption is killing South Sudanese. It's not incidental. It's the engine of South Sudan's collapse, hollowing out its economy, gutting institutions, fueling conflict, and condemning its people to hunger and preventable death. One of the reasons we produce this report is South Sudan's not a poor country. It's a plundered nation. And since independence, more than 25 billion in oil revenues have flowed into government coffers. These funds could have built schools, staffed hospitals, and secured food for every citizen. Instead, they have been siphoned off by elites.
And South Sudanese government has responded in a statement calling many of the allegations absurd. It also said it had not been given sufficient time to respond to the findings. Now to Ivory Coast, also getting ready to go to the polls in October. In the meantime, a new exhibition is drawing attention in a bustling suburb of Abobo. Titled The Great History of Elephants, it uses the story of the national football team to retrace the country's turbulent past and to send a message of peace ahead of the presidential elections. Julia Guggenheim and Damian Kofi have the story voiced by Tom Kennedy.
This is the first time most of these children are visiting a museum. They're here to discover the works of local artists, like the apotheosis, which depicts excited football supporters with plastic bags.
These bags come from several homes. They're not bags that come from a single house, and today they're grouped together for this piece to speak once again of reconciliation, diversity and peace. We may come from different parts of Ivory Coast, but when we're brought together, we become a work of art. We become something of value.
The exhibition draws on the double meaning here of the word elephant. It's the nickname of the national football team, which won last year's Africa Cup of Nations. It's also the national animal of Ivory Coast.
This painting shows footballs and represents the diaspora because football is a shared, common sport, a sport that brings people together. That's why I like this painting.
It's also an opportunity to remember the country's darkest moments, like the 2010-2011 post-election crisis, which claimed the lives of 3,000 people.
These are paintings by the artist Pascal Conan, and they depict the crisis. What do you see, tell me?
Men fighting.
Yes, very good. We can see that this character is caught up in a movement. It shows that the crisis also affects people who have nothing to do with it.
A sensitive topic just weeks before the next presidential election.
I think your parents have told you about the past crises, and everyone is a little afraid this year. It's important to show that we have already suffered serious consequences because of our elections in our history, and that we must not repeat this because it leads nowhere.
The exhibition will be on display at the Adama Tugara Museum of Contemporary Culture until the 23rd of November.
And a word of sport, Kenya's Faith Kipyegon has made history again at the World Athletics Championships. She stormed to her fourth world title in 1,500 meters, finishing in 3 minutes, 52.15 seconds, nearly 3 seconds ahead of fellow Kenyan Dorcas Ewoy. That puts her alongside Morocco's Hicham El Guerrouj as the only runners to win 4 world titles at the distance. Kipyegon has dominated the event for nearly a decade, and just a month after lowering her own world record, she showed her class again, not just by winning, but by helping fellow runners to their feet after the race. And with that unprecedented performance, we conclude today's edition of For Eye on Africa. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned to France 24.